Hello YouTube. This is another video from the Baked Potato where I give you guys my take on the cryptocurrency market. Um, Today I wanted to talk about some things that's going on with the prices. I also wanted to talk about my take on the book Scivive from Richard Heart. I just finished the book yesterday and I wrote some notes and I actually took some bullet points of my favorite takeaways from that book. So I want to get started with this news story here. Bitcoin could rally further as Tesla leads corporates on treasury investments. The market is now pricing in a high likelihood that many other corporates will copy Tesla, one trader said. Bitcoin's bull run may be set to intensify as the market anticipates a pickup in corporate demand prodded on by Tesla's major investment in the cryptocurrency. I remember seeing this story pop up yesterday that Elon Musk he threw 1.5 billion in, and Bitcoin just shot up uh, just 43,000, and it just seems like a trend that you're just going to see this happening more and more with companies that from their perspective it's like the new share buybacks. It's like, hey, we got some extra money here. Rather than produce and build more to generate more profit to raise our stock price, how about we just buy something? So Bitcoin is becoming that thing where you can buy it and investors want that price exposure, so they'll buy shares of your company. Now, this can only last so long. This can't happen forever where people just keep flooding in money. Eventually, um, investors really won't care. It won't affect the markets as much, and then Bitcoin will dump. There'll be a massive price dump, and people will be panic selling, and they'll be freaking out. I don't know when that is, um, but it will reach bubble territory at some point, and it'll crash. It'll be a higher low, and there'll be a bear period, just like in 2018 there was a bear period, and then you'll have to wait a couple years until it'll just go back to the same cycle again where you'll have that expansion phase. We're in that expansion phase right now, and it's just going to get crazier and crazier. So they say in this article here, prices can fly very high. I expect other heavyweights to follow suit. Trader and analyst Alex Kruger told CoinDesk over WhatsApp. Let's see. Bitcoin saw a record single-day move in dollar terms on Monday, rising by over $8,000 to levels above 46,000 and roaring to fresh lifetime highs above $48,000 early today, CoinDesk data shows. While several publicly listed companies such as MicroStrategy have adopted Bitcoin as a treasury asset over recent months, Tesla's move is notable given that as the first Fortune 500 company to diversify cash holdings into the cryptocurrency. Although the actual amount isn't large comparatively, the signaling effect and market reflexivity of projecting other global market leading companies to do the same will have a positive spiral effect on prices, Singapore-based QCP Capital said on its Telegram channel. Reflexivity is a theory that positive feedback loop between expectations and economic fundamentals can yield a substantial price rally. Tesla's Bitcoin buys may have validated the long-held bullish narrative that the cryptocurrency acts as a reserve asset. More buyers, therefore, could join the market, putting upward pressure on prices. So a key word there in this article is positive feedback loop, where company buys Bitcoin, that company gets rewarded. More companies see, oh, it would be a good thing for us to buy Bitcoin as well. The really first big company that showed this was Grayscale. MicroStrategies was the first, where Grayscale, it's a trust, where they hold the coins for you as a custodian, and they charge you this big premium, and they can use that premium to just buy more coins, and on it goes. And MicroStrategy was the first company where they have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, but they have this massive treasury reserve. And Michael Saylor just thought, this money is just going to melt like an ice cube over time. How about I allocate that into Bitcoin and then the money won't disappear? And that was a good move because their treasury assets, they multiplied in value. So it really is clear that this is a trend. It's going to happen more and more. It's going to just keep pushing the Bitcoin price up further. It's really like this domino effect that's happening. And companies are just going to be encouraged to do that. Like you saw Morgan Stanley, they bought 10% of MicroStrategy stocks. So people are looking at this. A lot of people are looking at this, and it's just going to feed into the markets more and more over time until it all boils over and comes crashing down, which it'll still, Bitcoin will still be a good price after it crashes. If it goes up to $100,000, worst case scenario, it'll crash to $15,000. $15,000, that's a way better low than it was a year ago when it was at $3,000. So if you bought Bitcoin at $3,000, you'd still be up 5x. It's like, but if you buy it at the all-time high, you wait to buy Bitcoin when it's $100,000 and you hold on to it while it's crashing to 15,000, yeah, you're going to get hurt. So, people who buy the lows, they can sit happy. They can just hold on. Or they could sell and take their profits, but chances are they'll buy back in and do worse than they could have done if they just held. It's always better if you have the time horizon, just hold on because you're not smarter than the market is. Your chances are you're going to jump in when the excitement comes back again and you're going to buy at a bad price. So, best thing for you to do is buy when nobody's buying. Right now, everybody's buying. If you haven't bought in yet, well, that's up to you. Me personally, I wouldn't buy any coins right now if I wasn't in. I would just wait until it goes back to being dead. But the people who mine on graphics cards are really difficult to find right now. Those 3000 series, you try to look for a 3000 series card, you go to eBay, 3080 on eBay. $1,850, brand new. So Nvidia lists this card as $700. That's almost triple the price. Why does it cost $1,850 for a card that's supposed to be $700? Well, because of GPU mining Ethereum. You buy the card and it does work for you and you make passive income. It's not exactly passive, but the computer does the work. And as long as you can cover the electric bill, there are ways around electricity with, like, if you use renewable energy, or even if one trick is if you have a semi truck with an inverter, you could actually plug in a computer. Like, you have a big enough inverter that's 2000 watts, and you could run a computer and have it mining for you while you're driving the truck. And then you don't have to pay an electric bill because it's just using that power that the truck's already providing. That's a way to do it. And, if the card's making you money, these miners, they're willing to pay that price. Gamers aren't. Well, at least they shouldn't pay that price. So that's where really HEX comes in, as far as, you want to make passive incomes on your coins. You want a cash flow. Buying coins and locking them up and then being paid the inflation from the network in a very secure smart contract. And it's secure as long as you do it correctly. So as long as your private keys ideally should be in cold storage and you should write the words down, don't have them on the internet, and have them stored in a safe place. So have it on a Trezor ledger, or if your keys are online in MetaMask, delete the MetaMask from your computer. As long as your words are written down in a safe place, you can go back to your stake. Once mark in your calendar when to come back in, reinstall MetaMask, and go into your stake with your seed words, and then you can end stake. Now, gas fees are high, sure, but if you do a long enough stake, right now, so you can calculate how much hex you'll get based off of how much money you put in and how long you lock it up. It's a dynamic system. But the easiest thing to say is if you are interested in GPU mining, Hex is a much, much better alternative because I don't need to buy hardware. I don't need to run electricity. I don't need to set up a node. I don't need to download software code that someone else wrote. I don't need to have hardware and software knowledge. I mean, some people, they're into that. They think it's fun. Or some people think it's the best option for passive income. It's not. Hex is way superior to get easy cash flow. So right now, if you lock up your coins for 5 years, that's the average length of stake. Now, you cannot access these funds for 5 years once they're locked up. Now, the way it works is you can pay a penalty if you want to early end stake. There's actually an emergency end stake button. I'll show you guys how it looks like on go.hex.com. It requires the MetaMask extension. You'll see it at the top right of your Chrome browser. But you go on the stake tab on the top here. You'll just type in your amount. You'll type in length of days. And you get these bonuses. Longer pays better and bigger pays better. Every year you lock up, you get 20% bonus to your interest. So an example, if you have 5% interest, 20% of 5 is 1. So it would give you 6% for the next year. And then it would just keep adding 20% of that total interest that you have. The overall interest it's paying out is 3.69%. Now you're competing against all the bag holders, the whole supply is the 3.69%. So 10% are staking in the network. That means 36.9% will be your average APY. Now you get that 36.9% when you lock up for 5 years, which is the average length. You're competing for T-shares. So T-share is 1 trillion shares. It'll actually show, if you click this top left corner, what your T-share price is when you're connecting your MetaMask. Right now, it's around 5.8 hex per T-share. So for every T-share that you buy, so you buy T-shares with your hex. So right now, the share price is around 17,000 hex for a T-share. So the price of hex is around a penny, a little bit above a penny, 0.012. You multiply that by 17,000. So if you want 1 trillion shares, you have to pay $204. We'll give you 1 trillion shares. So you buy $204 a hex, supposedly, okay? We lock it up for 5 years. And, well, actually, so you'll get more than 1 T-share if you lock it up for 5 years. But so the 7,000 hex per T-share is just based off the amount of hex that you're staking. And you get bonus shares as a percentage for each year that you lock up. But going back to penalties, you can download Staker.app on the Google Play Store if you have an Android, and you can paste in your public address into Staker app, It will show you like your rank in terms of how your stake is doing. And it'll show, hey, if you emergency unstake now, it'll actually show you your penalties. So how it works is with a stake, you need to stake longer. It's definitely at least, I believe it's 180 days, um, is like the length where you don't get penalized if you serve um, half of what you put in. So it's kind of complicated to explain, but it'll actually show in the app what your penalties are. So let's suppose you stake for a year. A year is a good length to lock it up. So you serve half of a year, 182 days, and on day 182, you can emergency end stake and you'll just get your principal back. Because at the halfway mark, when you go out over 180 days, when you serve the halfway mark, you actually, your penalties and your interest, they just cancel each other out. But if your stake is short, if your stake is like 90 days and you serve half of your 90-day stake, or if your stake is 30 days and you serve half of your 30-day stake, it doesn't work like that. Your penalties will actually be larger than your interests. So that will mean that your principal will get hit big time. So there's a calculation involved. I don't have the exact formula, but you want to be staking at least 1 year. 1 year, it's looking like you'll get around 14% APY, and 14% for locking up a year. That's a good rate. It's even better if you lock up 5 years because you're getting 36.9%, but 5 years is a long time to wait. You're getting upwards of 60% APY when you do the longest stake length. You know, the longest it'll let you do is 5,555 days. 60% each year. That adds up to big, big, big numbers. Um, because you can actually calculate that out, um, where you take your hex per T share, that your payout rate that you're getting, multiply by how many T shares you have, and then you multiply by how many days, and then you get a rough estimate of, okay, this is how much I'm going to get. So let's suppose that I did put $204 in and I lock it up for 15 years. Well, that's going to multiply my T shares out tremendously. So you're probably going to get around 4 T shares because thanks to all the bonuses. It it might be double. It's either double or 4 times. So I'll just be conservative and I'll say, okay, you get 2 times the T shares. So let's say you have 2 T shares from locking up $200 for 15 years. So you do 2 times 5.8. So your 2 T shares times 5.8 hex per T share, and then you multiply that by your 5555, so the longest stake you can do. So it's going to pay you out 64,438 hex minimum. So this is my estimate. So if I look at the current price of hex, so for locking up $200, I'm going to get at least $773. And so for larger amounts, so your longer pays better maxes out at 10%. Your longer pays better gives you way more bonuses. So your longer pays better maxes out at 10 years, so 36, 41 days, around the 10-year mark, and it gives you a 20% bonus for every year. So that should be 200%. A 200% would be, it actually would be 3 times the total shares. So it's actually going to be bigger. So we'll have 3 T shares. We'll multiply that by 5.8 hex per T share times 5555. So that's 96,000 hex. Now keep in mind we're locking up 17,000 hex. We multiply that by our 0.012. So if you're willing to wait 15 years, you lock up $200, you'll get $1,159. And that's an interest. What is that per year? You divide that by 15, you're being paid $77 per year for your $270. No, actually $204. So I divide that by 204. So that's 37.9%. So I said 60% earlier, but you'll actually have to type in the numbers to see what it actually spits out. It'll show you your bonuses, right next to the numbers that you type in. But this idea of longer pays better, Hex really gamifies that. It makes you think, what's the longest that I can lock up my money based on the reward it's giving me? Because the system is designed to reward you more for locking up longer. You can't game it where you say, oh, I'll lock up once a day, once a day, once a day, once a day, because the system ratchets the share price. You're paying more for those shares with more hex. So for each input, you have to either lengthen your stake or put in more hex to purchase the same amount of T shares every time you exit, because it increases the share price based off of people's profit. That's why it's dynamic. You can't predict exactly how that share price will move because it's based off of how the users play the system, how they play the game. But ultimately, in the longer term, the stakers beat the traders. And over time, the good user behavior, the strong hands, they will dominate the network over the long term. You're already seeing that with the price chart. You're already seeing that there's less and less dumping going on. There's less and less volatility with the system over time. And there's such a low amount of liquidity on Uniswap. It's really set up to do very well in the future. It's way better set up than lending, for example. Lending platforms, they'll do well during the bull market because people want to borrow and borrow funds and uses leverage, and the system keeps rewarding that behavior like a domino effect, right? But it's the opposite during the bear market. Hex can maintain itself much better than any other coin during the bear market because people have their coins locked up. If people have their coins locked up, that means less sell pressure. When you monetize good behavior, when you monetize, the only thing that matters is people buy and they don't sell. People hold and they don't sell. And with Hex, it gives you this truth engine where people aren't going to be ending their stake because their account gets hit or it completely gets nuked. If you do a 15-year stake and then you don't serve your stake length anywhere close to 7.5 years, your account's getting wiped out. Your principal's gone. So that means you can't sell. And then the system will distribute half that amount, half that penalty to the origin address and half the penalty to stakers. So it's like as if you're the bank. You're getting those penalties of people not committing. You have to commit to what you say you're going to do. And if you're not sure whether it's okay to end your stake, if the button is red, you shouldn't end it. Now, when it turns black, then you should end it. You have a 2-week grace period. After 2 weeks, it will bleed your account 1% every week. And then eventually, after 100 weeks, after 2 years, your account goes to 0. So you have 2 years and your account is nothing. You have 2 weeks and it starts draining your account. And Hex, compared to other DeFi applications, the gas fees are really low. in comparison. Now, they used to be a penny back in the early days, like last year in January 2020. Now, the gas fees are much higher. The Ethereum network is very congested. You have a very high price for Ethereum right now. You have all these different applications where people are just trying all these different things like NFTs. They're trying virtual property. Um, they're trying out games. Ethereum is just this massive ecosystem, this massive platform where there's a lot of garbage. But Hex, it's just that uh, application just standing in the background that truly shines. It's secure and it's designed to do well in price, designed to do very well. And Richard Hart put a lot of work in doing live streams, just sharing really good information. And I found his self-help book, Scivive, through listening to him, because he gives really good advice. He says a lot of really smart things. And the smartest idea that's out there is that the longer thing is better than the shorter thing. And you see that in daily life with everything. When you put in the long hours, when you put in the time and the effort, that's where the true reward is. Assuming that you're doing the right thing. When you're investing in your future, when you're locking up funds and it's paying you interest and you trust you're going to get that interest, that's really the purest application of that idea. And another example of that is like fitness. You put long hours every day consistently into fitness, you'll get the reward for it. Um, you just see that everywhere in life. You put consistent effort into your job, you'll get rewarded for it. You do the right things over time, you get rewarded. There really is a time value to money. And time is something it's a great equalizer. We all are given, we don't all have the same amount of time, but we're all limited by time. We're all sharing a pool of time, not sharing, but we're all given a pool of time, an unknown amount, and you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. Um, so I wanted to break down Scivive, some really good ideas that I found from the book. The best way to pick up the book is t.me/Scivive, and you can download the PDF files. It's on Telegram, and it's there for free. It's free information. Um, the book has some polishing to be done, but on Telegram, he has organized it into different sections. So my favorite sections were the ones on spirit and power and mind. And some bullet points I've written down. Boredom is useful. It helps us avoid processing loops and keeps us trying new things. Importance of framing. If you feel terrible, think of it like you made a new record and that is something special. Have courage to endure pain to save energy for the breakthrough. Gratitude is the key to happiness. Think of things like the toilet is the best invention ever, and it's nice that roads are paved. Just all these small things that we have that we take for granted, that if you just truly appreciate them, just that itself will help just make you happier. Emotions to maintain focus: alert, excited, elated, serene, relaxed, calm. Manipulate your measuring frequency, your sampling frequency quickly to give yourself small wins, but measure slowly if you need to ride the wave of a big win. Sit up in your chair, breathe deeply, and hold good posture to give yourself a boost. Rig things in your favor. You deserve to be happy. The filter of your reality is under your control. Choose the most optimum filter for happy and meaningful experiences. So there's this focus on emotional mastery, having mastery over your emotions. Emotions, they can go anywhere and they're fleeting. But ultimately, the most powerful thing is discipline. because discipline is that mastery over your emotions. Hey, you don't feel like going on a run? Too bad. If you're disciplined, you just do it. And eventually you ingrain good behavior into a habit. And once it's a habit, you can overcome those emotional barriers. So focus when you make an impact, make it locally, helping others. You live your life on the back of society. So all these things in modern society we're living on the backs of giants. Like there's a lot of stuff you didn't build. Most things you didn't build, chances are. So there is it's ingrained in us that we should give back in some form because, you know, uh, you can hear government say, well, you didn't build that. Pay your taxes. But really it's the people as a whole. It's not about, oh, helping government, it's about helping people. Giving back in the form of something unique, something special that you have as a gift or a talent, and focusing on that, maximizing your potential in that, and giving back in a way that's unique. Because if you don't give back in a way that's unique, chances are someone else will do that. And then you're really just competing at that point because you're not going out with your full potential. But everyone is unique in some way. Everybody does have their own thumbprint, as corny as that sounds, and it's something you have to look for. Um, so it's better to specialize than to be good at a bunch of different things because you're not going to maximize by spreading that out. If you focus your energy on one single thing and just really achieve mastery, you will get more from that. Um, Overconfidence is superior to underconfidence because it stimulates action. Action really is the most important thing. We don't want a bunch of smart losers. We want It's better to have just dumb people who are out there just trying, just kicking ass, taking names, doing stuff, right? Than just people who know a lot and don't do anything. No action is death. It's stagnant. It's like pond water. If you are anxious, ask yourself, what could it be that you're overvaluing or undervaluing? Maybe you're overvaluing something that really doesn't matter. And again, emotional mastery. Your emotions can steer you in bad directions oftentimes. You could use emotions as like rocket fuel or boost, but you could boost yourself into the wrong direction. If you boost yourself in the wrong direction, then that's actually bad. You want to boost yourself in a good direction. So you don't want to overvalue stuff that you know is bad or people whose opinions who they don't matter. Now there are people who their opinions do matter, but oftentimes we get caught up in people who really don't matter what their opinions say. It actually is a good thing to value someone's opinion, who that person, if they know what they're talking about, if they are doing the right things. And if they have a bad opinion of you, you should care about that. If they have a good opinion of you, you should care about that. Um, Desire is the most important trait emotion lacking in the universe. So desire, that is an emotion, and it's actually a good thing to build up. Building up your desire for something positive. If you can steer your desire into something that really does matter, that is really important, and you um, encourage it, if you feed that desire for something good, that will actually help get you where you should go, where you need to go. If you only want happiness out of life, that's a low target. I found that really interesting, um, because there's so many people who just they settle for being happy. It's like, oh, I just want to be happy, right? Happiness is enough. Well, there's actually more to life than happiness. Um, because you're actually missing out on something meaningful, actually building something, being creative, putting out something that you're proud of. That goes beyond just happiness. In a sense, just settling for happiness, you could say that's selfish. Um, Certainty is expensive, so be comfortable with uncertainty. So the reason certainty is expensive, you see that in markets. You can make a lot of money actually with a little bit of money by knowing which direction the market will go the next day. That's providing certainty. You get rewarded lots of money for being certain about how the market is going to move. So having a high degree of certainty, that's difficult. You can't have, and it's impossible to always be right about everything. So we need to be comfortable with uncertainty. Um, so the more comfortable you are with uncertainty, the more productive you can be, the more you're not going to hold back action because you're willing to go out there and try and see what happens. Having that approach rather than you need to know exactly how things will carry out. You're not going to know. So if stress and worry paid better, they would be considered. Much of the greatness in the world is a result of need, not want. The unhappy person has nothing to lose in the hunt, only gain, for he's already in the hole and sees light at the end of the tunnel. One is quite comfortable putting the fate of mankind in the hands of those who must win, and not those whom winning is only an option. So this idea of don't have a plan B, you have to win, and there's no other way, means you'll just keep trying and failing, and it doesn't matter. You'll just keep pushing through. And that's really where the best approach for the best leaders. They just keep pushing, they just keep trying, and if they fail, it's like giving up is not an option. There's no plan B. This is the only way about it. And you can see that in real life where the best accomplishments you have to push through a lot of adversity and a lot of struggle. One is quite comfortable. If you want to be happy, you can just continue to lower your standards until it happens. That's another idea with happiness. That's a problem with happiness. You can just lower your standards, and then you lower them enough, you're happy. You don't need to push your standards higher if you don't actually have to work if you're just happy with the bare minimum. You don't have to work at all. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to improve yourself. You don't have to try and strive for greatness. It's just, okay, let's settle for the bare bottom and then I'll be happy. Okay, that doesn't help the world. And it's very true. Um, so, this idea, all war is deception that we see in Sun Tzu's Art of War, you're supposed to cycle in and out of happiness. Enjoy being happy. It's like sleep, breathing, and eating. There's a cycle to it. You go in and out. Don't worry about it if you're not happy for the time being, because it is a cycle. You do something good, you accomplish a goal. Eventually, you need to be fine with your emotions saying, okay, let's move on to the next thing. And then you go after the next thing, and then you get there, and then you are happy. And then that happiness, it's not going to last. It runs its course, and that's okay. Don't measure what you're doing as a comparison of what you could be doing. Theoretically, you could be curing cancer, so it's unnecessary agony. I think that's a good idea about how there's so many things we could be doing, and people who, someone who's a tortured soul just thinks of all the things they could be doing and they aren't doing. So that's kind of like the other end of the spectrum of putting your standards at the bare minimum. You could put your standards at the absolute maximum. Like if you're not living out all this potential, all this greatness, but hey, you're actually doing pretty well, then that itself is a tragedy. So both ends of the spectrum are bad. You need an approach where you should be hungry but not starving. And you should never be full. You should never be full and you should never be starving. Be somewhere in the middle. And I see that way with diet. Like, hey, You don't want to starve yourself, but you don't want to be full all the time either. You want to have a good middle point because you can't sustain starvation. And you can sustain fullness, but you'll get fat and lazy if you sustain fullness. So both extremes are bad. Don't measure what you're doing as a comparison of what you could be doing. Be searching, hungry. Good ideas are like gold. Recall victories and great experiences so that you can generate a winning bias. So the idea of a winning bias is pretty interesting, where you think rather than assuming that you'll lose, you assume you already envision, and it's got to be a habit in your mind, in your mental state. Okay, I've already won. This is what it looks like in my head. I can already feel it. If you give yourself that win in your head, rather than assume that you're going to lose or assume that, oh, it hasn't happened yet, I don't deserve to feel that way yet. There's nothing wrong with just saying, hey, I know I'm going to win. I'm going to feel that win right now. And, that doesn't give me the excuse to not take action, but I can give myself permission to feel that I've won, that I've done the work already and feel that victory and then go do the thing you're supposed to do. It's actually a better approach than just thinking, okay, this is going to go badly. That pessimism. It's good to have optimism with the future work that you're going to do because it doesn't help to have pessimism. Pessimism can protect you, sure. Like if you think, okay, if you're aware of the future barriers, but if you have this, but if the future barriers you run into, if that keeps you from taking action, then you're working against yourself. You're mentally fighting yourself. You want to rig everything in your favor, so you might as well set yourself up mentally for success beforehand. Yeah, sure, be aware, have awareness of the challenges, but don't let the challenges hold you back. Don't let the challenges get in your way and say, no, there's too many challenges. I'm not going to bother. It's not worth it, right? Because the struggle and the expansion, the journey itself is the reward. The end goal is like the outer layer, the icing on the cake, right? But that journey is part of the entire thing. If you can't enjoy the journey, there's really no point. So that winning bias helps you enjoy the journey because you've captured that victory in your head. And it's obvious, it goes without saying, you actually haven't done the victory, but why not give it to yourself? Why not just assume you have it? As long as it doesn't keep you from doing the work, because you're not going to lie to yourself and say that you've already won. You're just going to say, you know what, I will, and I don't have any doubt. There's no wavering of faith. It's like I'm locked in on faith. I'm going to have strong hands. It's like with HEX, you see your interest accrue over time. It's yours. You just have to fulfill your end of the bargain, but every day you see that interest add up. You see your HEX, you're gaining HEX by locking it up. Just just mentally give that to yourself. Don't emergency end stake. Don't emergency end stake and lose it all. Just keep going. Just keep waiting. And then eventually your stake will be over. And then you claim the interest that's accrued. You claim that reward at the very end of the process. But in the meantime, treat it like it's there. Pretend it's there. You're not going to be spending it. Just you mentally acknowledge, hey, that's going to be there for me at the end. And it's going to happen. You don't have to say, well, it'll only happen if I follow through. Well, you're going to follow through. It's like, shut up. Stop assuming that you won't follow through. Stop giving yourself a loser bias. Give yourself a winning bias. That's one of the most important ideas, I think, in this book. If everyone would chill out with the arms race of personal appearance, everyone could relax a bit and our desires would renormalize. I think that's an interesting one. Let's see what else is there. Inflation works like the memory, someone else's memory. You need to claim the favor back. It erodes over time until you're owed nothing more. So he gives this example of a lawnmower where you lend your lawnmower to a neighbor and your neighbor holds on to it. And eventually, over time, your neighbor forgets that you even loaned them the lawnmower in the first place if you wait too long. So that's the idea with money. It's like there's a memory tied to it with inflation. If you have money sitting in your bank account, eventually that favor the society owes you. So when you hold money, it's kind of like society owes you a debt. And that debt society owes you gets smaller and smaller over time if you don't claim it. If you just have your savings sit in a bank, over time, because of inflation, society owes you less because it's like society is forgetting what you did for them in the first place. So that is why a system like HEX is important. We do have inflation. Inflation's a reality because inflation stimulates economic activity. People wouldn't continue to work. People wouldn't continue to spend, knowing knowing that their money is losing in value. It stimulates that activity. It stimulates that movement. And right now, a lot of that inflation is going into the markets. But some of that money spills out in the real world, and we do see prices of goods going up. So you're really losing out if you're not generating cash flow, if you're not in an investment that's going up in value. Um, you will suffer the effects of inflation. Um, so it's really society telling you that you need to focus on growth. You either need to be outputting more labor, more work, or better quality of work, or you need to have your money parked in something that's good, something like HEX, something like Ethereum, something like Bitcoin. Cryptocurrencies are the highest appreciating assets. Your money should be parked in a good cryptocurrency. Now, there could be other good cryptocurrencies. I've looked at a bunch of different ones, but those three are what I will always recommend, and I'm not going to recommend anything outside of those three. If you like other ones, go ahead, you know, have fun, but I can't recommend any outside of those three because I'm have the highest degree of confidence that those work. If I have a lower level of confidence, then I'm not going to recommend anything outside of those three. There has to be a cryptocurrency that proves to me that it's on the same level as those three coins. And I have yet to find something that's on the same level in terms of security, in terms of price appreciation, all the different trade-offs that you get, um, in terms of really being time tested. Now, Hex isn't time tested in the same way Ethereum and Bitcoin has had, but its code has been reviewed. It is immutable code. So that's why it has that same level of security or higher security. It actually has higher security than Bitcoin and Ethereum. But for me, it's at the same level because its code is locked. It can't be edited. It can't be updated. You don't have to worry about inflation bugs. You don't have to worry about any other future bugs. As long as you do your part with security, you don't have to worry about your coins being taken. And now the question comes, okay, what level of security is enough? Because there are other coins where they can be a little bit less secure, but that's fine. You won't have issues. Like I haven't heard of Chainlink, for example, having any security issues, but I have heard that DeFi applications that rely on price oracles, they're being tampered with. Their flash loans are being done using rather than time weighted price. You need to take a time weighted average of price. They just take a small sample of price. So someone could use a flash loan, they could push the price down, they could liquidate people and take their money using these lending platforms. Because lending platforms, when you use them, they will liquidate you, your position, your collateral, because being decentralized, they force you to over collateralize, like MakerDAO. I've tried out MakerDAO's system where I lock up Ethereum as collateral. and it'll spit out DAI. And I can go and spend that DAI on whatever I want. I could buy another coin, I could buy Ethereum, or I could put in my bank account, and the Ethereum sitting as collateral. And I set the ratio of what my borrowing amount is to how much collateral I put in. And when the price reaches a certain level, so the more collateral you put in, the higher collateral you put in as a ratio to the amount it spits out, then the lower the price can go without you having to worry. But you could set it to where the price just goes down a little bit and they will liquidate your collateral. Your Ethereum, it's gone. You don't want to have to worry about that. I mean, it's basically very similar to options trading, doing a call option or going long. Um, yeah, getting liquidated is not good. You don't want to have to worry about that. You don't want to have to worry about a price wick down. You don't want to have your alarm. You don't want to have these alarm notifications, price notifications on your phone, constantly be staring at charts. You just want steady cash flow that you don't have to worry about. You know, the get rich quick mentality really is the source of the problems that we're seeing in DeFi. So while Chainlink, going back to Chainlink, it's fine that it exists, having an Oracle marketplace, but one issue with it is it's not complete. It's still having work done to it. It's having new code introduced, and that new code introduced has to be well written. It has to be audited. So, and it has features. There are features that need to be added that haven't been added yet. So there's the staking element that needs to be added, and there's a reputation element. So how do you do reputation in a decentralized Oracle marketplace? Well, you would need KYC. Okay, as soon as you introduce KYC, how are you any different than a company at that point? How are you any different than an unregistered security? Because I might as well just use a company like Oracle, right, to feed me price data. You know, you need that trust element. Okay, so let's say you stake your chain link and you put that in as collateral, you run your Oracle, and in the smart contract it says, hey, if you lie, we're taking your collateral. Well, you could set, you could run an Oracle in a situation that will allow you to steal more money than the collateral you put down. In that situation, the collateral staking, that doesn't make your system secure. It's only secure in in a situation where your collateral is larger than any amount that you could steal from lying. You know, there can't be a profit margin from that, from lying. So there's assumptions with it. It's not, oh yeah, we put in this feature and now it works. Doing an Oracle marketplace that's decentralized, that adds security, you're really just adding attack surface because there's always ways to cheat the system when you're relying on these things. You know, your security should depend on a smart contract that can enforce itself, that's self-enforcing. So the more simple it is, the better. You're adding this layer of complexity that, sure, it's needed with an application where you have options trading and you need to have price information. Sure, an Oracle is needed, but maybe those applications just aren't ready yet. There needs to be time testing. There needs to be a system in place that's proven to work. You can't just assume that Chainlink, you put in Chainlink Oracle, and then all of a sudden that'll make everything work. We're not there yet. Um, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, those things do work as long as, you know, you play the game like you're supposed to. You know, Bitcoin being the simplest system, it's just send and receive or hold. You hold your coins or you send or receive. That's very simple. It works. You use it correctly, it works. With Ethereum, now you're adding another layer of complexity, but if your smart contract, and HEX being the best example, the smart contracts don't have vulnerabilities. They don't have these layers of complexity that can be manipulated from flash loans or these different bugs. It's such a simple system, you can't tamper with it. It's not like you can go into the blockchain and you can fast forward the time and then end your stake because the blockchain thinks that you're in the future when you're really not. It basically it works as intended, and it's showing that right now. It doesn't need to prove itself because it is so simple. Um, so yeah, that idea of inflation. Um, it's one of those things. It's inevitable because governments they accrue debt. If they want to make that debt worth less, that's what they need. They need inflation. They want that inflation, and they also want money velocity. How do you improve money velocity? Inflation. So governments they like inflation. Savers they don't like inflation because when you're saving, it's very simple. Your savings are worth less. But when you're in debt and your debt is worth less, that's a good thing for you because you don't have to do as much work to pay that debt back because it's worth less. So there's another idea. Choose your perspective based on your circumstance and goals. Limiting beliefs. So one funny idea is if you think you don't have a limiting belief, that is your limiting belief because we all have them. So the challenge is you need to identify them and then you have to have a strategy, right, to go after them because they'll never go away, but you can set up um, your life and your mental state in such a way that you have a way to push them back and you can see them when they come up. As soon as you think of like a goal or a project, those limiting beliefs they'll start flooding in because you'll start thinking of, okay, what are the challenges of this? And as soon as a challenge pops up that seems, oh man, this is too hard. Well, there you go. You see a limiting belief staring you right in the face because you thought of an excuse to not do something because there'll be a challenge that comes up and you don't want to deal with it. So sensory deprivation is a new age belief that doesn't really work. You found a way to be content with sucking and continue to lie to yourself about your own reality. Cut out people who take more than they give, they are leeches. Two things aren't fair, so this idea of life isn't fair. One is that you're too cowardly to admit how truly great any human being's potential can truly be, and that any one of us with enough dedication and drive could truly impact millions of lives through the spreading of a unique idea. Um, so this idea that it's not really talent and IQ that matters. It's about knowing the right thing and just taking action. So you learn a thing, you take action on that thing. It's better than focusing on the talent, the skill, and the IQ. Things that, sure, grow, you could grow, but it's better to just take action with the correct information than to worry about skills and talents. The other is that you will fail along the way, and don't feel bad if you don't obtain your potential. Shakespeare said, create yourself, don't find yourself. So, finding yourself, that's really a new age idea we see in today's world. Find yourself, as if you can explore your mind and sit there and do nothing, and then you'll discover uh, what you like and what you don't like. I know as far as jobs go, it's trial and error to know what you truly want to do in this world. Something, it has to be built. Behavior has side benefits. So even laziness, there's a side benefit to laziness. You're using up less calories. It's like a survival mechanism to be lazy. But, toxic behaviors, they're toxic because they don't serve you at some point. And you just acknowledge the healthy way to look at it is acknowledge, okay, you served me at one point in time, now you don't no longer serve me. So I'm going to go with a different behavior. Going beyond diminishing returns can be negative. So there comes a point where you push too far and you're not going to get anything really more out of it. You have this S curve, it flattens out. But if you just keep going, if you go too far, it goes down. You go down eventually because you do go too far. I guess that's a bad way of putting it. You realize, yeah, you really should be doing something else at a certain point. You could be better using your time. So you can achieve mastery. Mastery is great, but trying to think with diminishing returns where that applies. It could have to do with, you trying to buy the best thing. Sometimes you don't need the best. Sometimes just good enough works, and you're spending way too much money on certain things if you're trying to go with the best. When you listen to music, when you watch movies or listen to videos, to some degree, you're executing someone else's software for you. So build your own stuff and consume your own stuff. And same with books. Some people have the courage to face death and fight. Other people lack the courage. Cowardly action is choosing death over struggle and expansion. People want to believe that they are unique, special, and deserve great resources. This is an idea with advertisement. Successful advertisements, they they're about making you feel special, making you feel included on a company's mission. The best companies, they establish a why, a very strong why. And if they can pull their customers in, like, hey, you buy from us, you're participating in our mission, and you're unique, you're special, you deserve great resources. And that's really the the idea behind the surface of what companies try to do when they market, make their customers feel special. And you see when companies do the opposite, it backfires on them. Gillette is a really good example of that, if you've ever seen the newer Gillette commercials. The more self-doubt you have, the less decisive you are. The longer you remain in a non-mutated state. Analysis paralysis. So self-doubt, it just gets in the way of you taking action. It's not something that'll serve you. If you ignore all the other parts that touch and influence and are near a thing, you'll rarely make the best decision about the thing. So there's this idea in lean manufacturing that the people who are closest to the process, they know how the process can be improved. So you take engineers, you take executives, you take a CEO. Do they know how to make a particular step in a process? Like, let's suppose they're making a flavor from a spray dry manufacturing process. Do they know how much water needs to be added when they're batching that? Not exactly. They wouldn't know, but the guy who's actually mixing the putting the raw materials together, mixing them, he knows how much water to put in. It might say on his instructions a different amount simply because some guy in a lab created it in a small amount and then they just extrapolated that. And then it ends up being a wrong number. They make a larger amount and you can't just make it into a ratio. You actually have to do trial and error and actually have to have the experience with the thing to know, okay, this is when I can tell that you meet the specifications. So the guy being closest, he's the guy who's going to know. The people who are further away from that, and it's really common sense, but people don't always think of it that way because sometimes the people who are closest to the problem, they're looked at as being at the bottom of a totem pole, and people who are higher up in the totem pole, they have the authority to make decisions when they're really not the most specialized. You'll see this in decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, and cryptocurrencies, where they say the bag holders, right? The people who own the most tokens should be making decisions. And why are you more qualified just because you're higher up on the totem pole to make certain decisions? Um, it's really the programmers, generally speaking, who know the best decisions to make. So this idea that people who are higher up when it comes to positions and they make more money or they have a larger stake, like shareholders in a company, for example. Why do they know what's best for the company? They're very far away from the problem. Now they're being financially impacted by the problem itself, and finding a solution is important to them. But just because the problem is bigger to you doesn't mean you know the answer to it. So it's a good idea that you definitely see it, and a lot of people don't acknowledge that. Um, Patience is a minor form of despair disguised as virtue. It's an interesting one because patience is looked at as a virtue. Um, I think that resilience is a virtue, and resilience is similar than patience, but patience implies a form of passivity, whereas resilience implies pushing through, making a breakthrough, doing the hard work to get to the breakthrough. So rather than focus on patience, focus on resilience because resilience has that action factor in it, where patience is this idea of just sitting and waiting and doing nothing. And that's really not virtuous. You can avoid, because it's just you suffering and sitting and doing nothing. You can avoid a lot of conflict by assuming the win. So back to the winning bias, you could get in a conflict or an argument with someone, right? And you negatively alter your mental state, right? Why would I want to negatively alter my mental state? Wouldn't I just want to assume, hey, I have the right information, logic is on my side, I've already won. I don't need to try to correct this person who wouldn't even listen to me anyway, because that person would immediately get offended or think that I'm condescending or think that um, I'm judging that person. And it's like, no, I'm just trying to correct you. But you can avoid all that if you just know, hey, the truth is on my side. I've already won. I don't need to have this argument because typically people are trolls. There are a lot of trolls out there and they just want attention. They just want to get a rise out of you. So if you assume the win, you can avoid that. It's kind of the idea of the difference between a tiger and a dragon. Is this example he gave from a martial arts instructor? The tiger needs to prove itself. The tiger needs that challenge, like, hey, I need to prove my strength. The dragon sits there and is like, I'm already strong. I don't need to prove myself. So the approach of the dragon is better. Just knowing, hey, I know that I'm right. I know that I don't need to attack because I know what I am and I know what I'm not. That approach of, you know, you can actually reveal your own self flaws right from the beginning. Nobody can really attack you after that. That you disarm someone if you just expose your own issues from the get go. You can't be attacked. And when you have that approach, you don't have to go out trying to prove yourself. So the question that I thought of about all this is how do you build up internal drive and self-resilience? And motivation and desire isn't what gets you there. It doesn't come out of nothing. So self-discipline and having habits, that will get you there, but that has to be built. So by reading this, by listening to all this advice on Scivive, it just doesn't come out of thin air. You can't think up the internal drive and self-resilience. You can't just think your way to that point. You have to create that. You have to build that, and that requires action. So doing the thing is better than thinking about the thing. It's superior. So it really that's the idea that carries through the whole thing. Build up self-discipline. Build it. Create it. That's what will get you there. And all the thoughts, all the tricks, all the mind hacks, yeah, they can help you. It could be like putting an additive into a car, but you need to have the gasoline, you need to have the oil, you need to have all the components, you need to have the steering wheel. All the components have to be there. The car has to be built. The additive, the Lucas additive you put in your car isn't going to drive your car, isn't going to get you to your destination. Winning can feel like losing. So an example he gives is like an auction. You win an auction, right? But really, to win an auction, you have to be willing to pay more for the thing than other people are willing to pay. Well, that's kind of a bad deal. You're winning and then you're getting the worst of the deal. Like in eBay, you get your thing, you win an eBay auction and you get the thing. It's like, yeah, you won the thing, but you paid the most, you're willing to pay the most for it. So in a sense, it's like you're losing. So you can see that in life where you get the win, but it feels like a loss because there's a price you have to pay to get the win. And to get the win, the guy who wins is paying the bigger cost than everyone else. Generally speaking, that's how it works. But if you're willing to pay the higher price, then you'll get the ultimate win. You just have to be willing to pay that price. Um, so you miss out on the trade-off a loss would give. As group size increases, the threat of free riders grow. So this is something you see in blockchain, and you'll also see it in churches, religious groups, as group functions, group hangouts. Eventually something gets big. People, free riders come in. They want to leech on the work of others, and eventually you get this high signal to noise ratio. You see that in Wall Street bets. It used to be back before GameStop shot up in price. You had some smarter content on there. Now it's just an echo chamber. So the high signal to noise being you have a lot of dumb people being very loud with with microphones, right? And the noise is, hey, this is actually the good stuff. This is actually the content that's worth looking at. That's the noise. So as that ratio goes up, you know, it's because the group size got big. That it's inevitable to happen. So cost signaling theory accounts for this by proposing that there needs to be a ritual and it needs to be cost. So there, with high cost to get in, you're proving that you are actually giving good noise. You're actually something that you should be received. Without it, it's kind of like that proof of work. In Bitcoin and Ethereum, a miner outputs that energy, and that output of energy proves, hey, the ledger needs to be updated with this information. The work was done correctly because there was an energy input that it can't be bought back. So that energy input, and you see this in nature, it proves, okay, this is a worthy signal because it was demonstrated. So the first minute you put into something is the most important. It creates momentum. So there's this idea of static friction, right? Static friction, it's that barrier to start to push something. Something is stuck in place with friction, and it's static friction. Once you overcome the static friction, an object in motion stays in motion, and the push becomes easier. So it's the same with getting yourself to do something you're supposed to do. You start doing the thing the first minute, and then it just rolls. It just becomes natural. So offer paths to meet your needs. That's another one. Use your gifts and skills you have fought for to find fulfillment in a mission. It will be the best thing you ever get addicted to. So life offers a lot of distractions. There's a lot of different things you could get addicted to. They're traps, but this is what is actually a good trap. Is if you find that thing where you fought for certain skills and talents, you've maximized, your potential a certain thing, you found something unique that you're good at, and then you use that to build something, to do a project, and then you'll find fulfillment in that. That's really the best thing um, that you can find. Focusing on the intermediate step is superior to the end goal. So this idea he showed an analogy is like with sex versus having a kid. So sex is the intermediate step to having a kid. Um, So nature has programmed us to want to have sex, but having a kid is the result of that, where we're not really programmed in the same way to want kids. Some people want kids, some people don't want kids, but everyone generally wants to have sex. It's like, yeah, 99% of people want to have sex, 99% of people don't want to have kids. 99% of people, you don't have 99% of people wanting to have kids. It's a much lower percentage. But that desire for the immediate intermediate step gets you to that end goal. So if there's an end goal that's good, if there's an end goal that you want, it's better to focus on the intermediate thing. So take fitness as an example. If I focus on desiring the dopamine rush, the endorphins, right? You release this good feeling that comes from exercising, from running. If I focus on that rather than the health benefits of exercise or being in good shape, it's better to focus on the intermediate thing, the intermediate fun part of it, which is that endorphin rush, that dopamine rush from having exercised, because it's along the path. It's about enjoying the journey rather than enjoying the end goal. Um, Stairs used over ramps because our emotions and perceptions ratchet in the same way that the rolling friction, static friction transition too easily on the ramp. Smooth spectrums are difficult for the mind to conceive. So our mind, the idea here is that our mind works in a similar way to friction. So there's like a transition to things. Our mind will ratchet gradually in its perception. And in friction, you have this transition from rolling and static that makes ramps less useful to us to walk on than stairs. So it's kind of this connection of the two, that they just work in a similar way, where sometimes our minds will process things in the same way that you'll see in reality. It's kind of a weird idea, but it's interesting. So, biggest buildings in Las Vegas are built from the slight advantage and chance. And something interesting about that is you can do the same in your life. Just give yourself a better chance, set yourself up for success. It doesn't guarantee success, but everything you do, if you set your life up, it's rigged. It's rigged in a positive way. In the same way, I look at HEX. HEX is rigged for price appreciation. It's set up for price appreciation. It doesn't guarantee it. But in Vegas, Vegas is built on rigging the system. The house always wins. That's what you hear. And it's not that they win every game. It's just in the long term, the house will win. The longer you play, the more likely the house will win. And the big buildings in Las Vegas are the result of that idea. That idea that um, you have this massive amount of capital was needed to create Las Vegas. You have this city in the middle of a desert. It's one of those things. It should not be there. Not like in nature. You will not see these things because it's so far away from a major water source. You need distribution, you need logistics, you need capital, influx of capital, you need all this money, you need all this labor to sustain an operation like that. A city, a major city in the middle of a desert with all these lights, all these products, all the best chefs, all the best hotels condensed into a city in the middle of the desert. It's like a wonder of the world. It's an example of just human ingenuity and human just coming together and building something that just shouldn't really exist. It's one thing when you have a city near a major water source or around a lot of resources. To have a city in the middle of a desert, and it really, all that money, not all of it, but much of that money is just generated from the house. The idea the house always wins. They set up these games in where the house is favored because they set up these games to work that way. Hex, it's set up in the long term to reward stakers. Hex works the same way, like a casino. You want to be the casino. You want to be set up to win in the long term, and that's how you should set up your life. Like preparation is an example of that. You know, fail to plan, you're preparing to fail. If you make your plan, you're rigging odds in your favor. Now, things can happen that you don't expect, but over the long amount of time, generally speaking, if you plan things out, you'll find success. Um, just always just be tactical, be strategical. Think of, okay, I'm going to do a thing. What can I do ahead of time to make sure that I'm going to be successful with it? And it's a really good thing to think about. And Las Vegas is that visual, that visual that shows you, you know what? If I plan ahead and I'm rigged for success, that's what Las Vegas looks like. It's that setting yourself up for success. That's what the casinos do. Casinos don't exist because the games are rigged out of their favor. It's that slight advantage and chance. Now, the key word is slight advantage, because if there was a huge advantage, people wouldn't even play the games, because, people have this personal bias, right? Where they think, okay, I'm going to win. But if it's obvious, if it's clear that they have a huge advantage, then you're not going to even play their games, because, oh, there's no chance I can win. Why? You're not going to play the game if you have a very small chance. But that slight chance advantage means the house will win over the long period of time, because you have people thinking that they're winners. They want to believe that they're winners, and some do win big. So it's those stories of, hey, I'm going to win big. It's, casinos aren't like the lottery. There's a difference between playing the lottery and playing blackjack. With blackjack, you know, anyone can win that. With the lottery, there's always a winner, but the odds are so low, it's not going to be you. There's someone who wins it. There's always a winner, but it's not going to be you. The odds are too low. So you don't have these great cities being built from lotteries. Casinos aren't lotteries. Casinos are casinos. They have that slight advantage. So it's kind of like they're able to manipulate you because you think you can win, you think you're different, you think you're better, because they give you enough of a chance to win, just enough to where you think, all right, I'm going to clear this casino out. Sure, you can clear it out, but the average person does not clear out a casino. The average person gives money to them, thinking that they're going to win. So Las Vegas is a good visual for thinking, okay, if I give myself a slight advantage over time, this is what I can build greatness. It's a really powerful idea. So motivation and desire, way more valuable than knowledge. Emotions are slippery, so discipline is even more valuable than motivation. So now moving on to power and mind. So these are much shorter. That was the spirit section. So you never have to think about quitting after you stop smoking. It's no longer a fight. So you win the fight, the problem, it's no longer a problem. Many people have found greatness later in age by not giving up. Colonel Sanders being a good example. Previous success is your greatest enemy. This is a big one. I've seen this so many times. You see it with artists, you see it with studios, you see it with companies. They make it big, right? And then you see it in cycles. They'll relax. They'll think that they just attract success. They think that they're special. They think that they're somehow that they don't have to work as hard the next time. It always happens. It's part of human nature. You win, you make a win, and you're like, I don't need to work as hard next time because I won. And then you see them create something worse next time. And this idea is important because it's almost a tragedy to some degree when previous successes actually poison the future because of that pride, that buildup of pride. You let that get to your head, it will make you perform worse. Um, so work at something until it becomes a habit. Once something becomes a habit, to a degree, it's a strong enough habit. It's harder not to do the thing than it is to do the thing. And when that's a good activity, that's a win. So like having the habit not to smoke after you've quit, that's a good thing. It's positive. So moving on to mind, have a high attention economy. Don't pay attention to garbage. Value your attention. Treat it like money. You have a limited amount of attention. You have a limited amount of time. Put to good use. Have high standards for what you pay attention to. Don't pay attention to low quality stuff. See yourself as a crystal that radiates the color that you focus on. So, you know, I've always had this idea back in the past that I could pay attention to something that, as long as it's true information, that it's helpful for me. But that's actually not how it works. You don't want to focus on something just because it's true, because there's a lot of bad truths out there. Not everything that's true is good. You want to focus on what's good. You want to have positive framing, because your mind and your body will actually will reflect the things you absorb. So just because information is true doesn't mean it's worth looking at. That was a lesson I had to learn on my own, and I wish I had learned it much earlier. Um, a good example of that, I don't like the word, but I have to use it, is conspiracy theories. There are true conspiracy theories out there. Just because something's called a conspiracy theory doesn't make it false. There are true conspiracy theories, there are real conspiracy theories. I'm going to get that out of the way now. But is it better? Are you better off knowing about them? Is your life suddenly improve knowing all of them and how they all work and the ins and outs and all the details? My life is not better for knowing about the different conspiracy theories out there. Yes, I know them. Is my life better? No, it's not. It's not better. And in fact, oftentimes it's worse, because you've absorbed the reality about how evil some people are. When you absorb that information and you know, oh, this is how evil some people are. This is how some of the evil stuff people have done. And there's false ones, sure, but there are some real ones. There are some really dark ones. And it can make you really depressed knowing some of the stuff that's going on. And for me, I just know, okay, I should only take in information that is useful as a tool that helps me accomplish my mission. So that's how I approach it. Visualize what you want for long periods of time. Don't visualize the opposite. I mentioned that earlier. We don't need smarter losers. We need stupider ass kickers. Trade education for motivation. So motivation, that's more important. That's what schools should be helping people with, not education. The world would be a better place for that. But that's not the politically correct thing to say. It's politically correct to say education is power. Education is not power. If you're sitting on your butt not doing anything, you can be the smartest person in the world. That's not powerful. Power is motion. Power is movement. Power is action. And motivation is helpful towards action, because if you're motivated enough, it's like you can't sit still. You got to go after something. Education doesn't make you want to go after something. Simplicity is always more useful. So there's this misapplication of Occam's razor where they say the simpler thing is typically the true thing. Truth isn't always simple. Um, I think that's a cop out. Um, but something simple is more useful. So whatever is true, break it down in the simplest way possible, and that's useful because our minds want things to be compressed. Computers, hard drives want things to be compressed. Information that's compressed is more useful. If you complicate things, then it's just a mess. It's a tangled web. You can't apply it as easily. So misunderstanding is worse than not knowing. A very, very true statement. So when you misunderstand something, you think you understand, and then that has to be corrected. Whereas if you just don't know, that's a much better thing because you're more teachable when you don't know rather than, oh, I think I know, but I don't know, because that requires correction. Not knowing something doesn't require correction. That's just requires education. Education, it's easier to educate someone than correct someone. I've always found that. So there's like an order of operations in terms of, or there's a hierarchy to the mind. So the highest thing you can do is create, and the lowest level is remembering something. So if you recall something, sure, that's good, but it's not as useful as creating. Creating something is the highest order of, because that's taking not your mind, what your mind understands, your mind knowledge, and puts it into the world. So it goes from memory, you recall information, understand information, apply information, reflect and analyze on information, evaluate information, and then create. So that's the order you go through the levels. And then finally act on your knowledge that you have. So that's my take on Scivive. It's a lot, but it's a 400-page book. I condensed it down into my favorite ideas. I hope anybody who likes to listen to Richard Heart, anybody who enjoys Hex, likes this stream, and let me know what you think. Bye, guys.